Hey guys, it's time once again to find out if new hotness can really beat tried and true. Let's get to work. Hey guys, Andrew here. Welcome back to Work the Trigger. Today we're going to be talking about the Hellcat Pro again, but we're going to be comparing it to something a little bit different than we've been comparing it to. Up until now, we've been comparing it to small guns, subcompacts, micros, etc. Today we're going to be comparing it to this. This is the old fallback. Good old faithful, trusty Glock 19. With its trusty reliability and 15-round magazines, it has been the fallback of the concealed carry option for years. But with this new guy on the market, and its 15+1 capacity as well, can it take the lead? Or at least take some of the sales? Let's find out. Really quick before we get into it, there's a couple of things I want to cover. First of all, if you like the channel and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button down below. Secondly, big shout out to GallowTech for that, our new backdrop. That's right, we're getting some new stuff in the back here. You'll find a link in the description down below for them. Also wanted to remind you about these. This is the null adapter for a lot of different handguns like our Glock 19 here, allowing us to fit the 17-round Glock 17 mag into our 19. We've also got them available for the Walther PDP, the CZP-10 series and PO7 series, and the Taurus G3. You'll find a link to that down in the description as well. Now with the bills out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes. If you're new here to the channel, our general procedure is first we go over the specs, then we hit the range, we shoot both of them, and then we come back here to round it out. First up, let's get to the specifications. Let's start off with the Glock 19. So the Glock 19 comes in a lot of different flavors, and with those different flavors come different price points. You've got your base model, which comes in at about $540, up to your MOS model, which is the optics ready version, coming for about $620. Now, in case you're wondering, those prices will vary a little bit. What I did was I used gun.deals, which is an excellent place to find the best deals that you can find on whatever handgun you're looking for. And I typically find the lowest prices on there, and that's what I give to you guys. So if you found lower prices somewhere, that's fine, that's cool, but this is what is readily available on the internet, with a big asterisk of we don't sell guns. Back to the Glock 19, let's go over its size really quick. We've got an overall length of 7.28 inches, a height of 5.04 inches, and a width of 1.24 inches, coming in at a weight of about 23.99 ounces. We'll just call it 24. It does come with 3 15-round magazines, and for that base price of about $540, you get Glock's typical craptastic plastic sights. When you upgrade a little bit up to that MOS model, you're gonna end up with still those crappy plastic sights, but also Glock's MOS plate system, which allows you to have a red dot ready gun. The Glock here from top to bottom, this Glock has had replacement sights. These aren't the original sights on it. The 45 behind me that I used the slide off of for the test, that's got plastic sights on it. Typically, you've got the plastic sights. You've got the MOS option back here at the back with the plate system, which is meh. Replace those plates with like CNH plates if you ever use the MOS system. Going down from that, we actually have an ambidextrous slide stop side release with our Glock 19 here. This is a Gen 5. And one nifty thing about both the Gen 5, and actually I forgot to comment about this on the Hellcat Pro, is the inclusion of non-proprietary Picatinny rails. Now, yes, the little adapter thing in the Glock 1 is different, but almost all lights come with that. But you don't have to get a special light for the Hellcat Pro here. It can take all of your standard lights. It can take a TLR1, it can take an X300, I don't know why you do that. It can also take the TLR7 Sub in its standard 1913 Picatinny configuration. Working our way down a little bit more, we've got the trigger, and the trigger on the Glock it's a Gen 5 trigger, so it's better than standard. It's not super great. It's adequate. At about a 4.5 pound break on mine, this is a well-worn 19. The weight comes in right about the same as the Hellcat, but the trigger does feel considerably different than the Hellcat. It feels a little bit lighter, but that's because the 19 has a little bit more roll in the break. Let me break it down to the trigger pull profile. So we've got our standard safety tab to the take-up, and that take-up is a little bit longer than the Hellcat on the wall. Now with this one, we still get that creep, but the creep on this is stacking a little bit. It starts off a little bit light, and then it builds up to that break, rather than being the same weight the whole way through. Whether that's good or bad, that's personal preference, just pointing out a thing. Reset on the trigger is back out just to the back of where our take-up ends, then right back on that wall, and back to the break. Grip texturing on the Glocks, it's better than Gen 3's. I've never been overly impressed by Glock grip texturing, but it does its job. It keeps it in your hand. It's not super comfortable, and it doesn't, there's definitely a lot better options out there, but it's kind of like the rest of everything else on a Glock. It works. Now the mags for the 19 are Glock's standard polymer coated magazines. My biggest problem with the polymer coated magazines is their propensity to not drop free. This one's been doing pretty well lately, but there are times that it just drives me insane. And then we've got our swappable mag release. Glock 19's out of the way, let's go ahead and move over to the Hellcat. So the Hellcat comes in a couple of different flavors too. However, the Hellcat's different flavors are more things like the color. Because the base model of the Hellcat, which I have found for under $500, coming in about $490, is already optics ready. Now, the optics ready system on the Hellcat Pro is not quite as universal as the MOS system on the Glock. This is not a plate system, it is a direct mount for some of the smaller dots like the Holosun K series. So while not quite as versatile, you're also spending $150 less. Let's go over some of the sizes. We've got an overall length of 6.6 inches, a height of 4.8 inches, a thickness of just 1 inch, and a weight of 21 ounces, making this gun smaller in every aspect. Now, beyond overall size, a major difference between these two guns, Glock's at about a 4-inch barrel, and your Hellcat Pro has about a 3.7-inch barrel. So you're looking at about 0.3 inches of barrel less with the Hellcat Pro here. Again, with the Hellcat Pro, up here at the top, we've got our nice metal night sights, we've got our optics cut, and a decent coating on the slide with what is actually relatively good slide serrations. It's this kind of double cut. They're not super deep, but they do work pretty well. I think they work just as well as the Glock. Not as well as a lot of other guns, however. I think that the Smith & Wesson, their scallop ones work a little bit better. I think the super terrain serrations on the PDP work a little bit better, and I think the CZP-10 and its sharp serrations work a little bit better. That being said, the Glock serrations have never been a lot to write home about. The Hellcat's not any worse than those. Coming down, we don't have ambidextrous controls on the Hellcat. We've got what I would say is like a pretty okay trigger, with trigger pulls right around the 4.7 pound range. Here's our trigger pull profile. You've got the standard Glock style safety tab, and you've got a little under 3/8 of an inch of take-up. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's because this gun is extremely small. The take-up percentage looks to be about the same. Within our trigger guard here, it's a small gun, so you're not going to end up with a whole bunch. So we come back to a relatively hard wall and a little bit of creep on that, and what feels like quite a bit of creep when you're pulling through lightly to the brake. Reset on that is right back out to where our pressure started before, right at the end of that take-up, right back on the wall and the brake. Now, one thing that I want to point out with that brake and how much creep you saw there, when you're actually pulling through in firing, you don't feel that creep at all. It brakes pretty hard through. Like, that's a solid pull through. So once you hit that 4.75 pound, it's just going to pull straight through that and break the trigger. You're not going to feel a stacking as you pull through it. Our grip texturing here on the Hellcat is pretty nice. It's comfortable yet grippy, if that makes sense. It's not going to wear your skin raw if you have this, if you're carrying it without like an undershirt, but it is going to keep the gun planted in your hand well enough. Now, the Hellcat does have these weird little hot spots on the back of the back strap here, same as the standard Hellcat. The only thing that I've really noticed that it does is makes it more uncomfortable to shoot. The mags that come with the Hellcat are relatively thin, pretty nice metal magazines. I appreciate the metal magazines. I'm not a fan of the plastic ones, and a swappable magazine release. Now, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and hit the range, shoot these, and then we'll come back and talk about the results. Okay, so we're out at the range now with the Glock 19 and the Hellcat Pro. We're gonna put these to the test and find out if the slightly larger Glock 19 really has an edge over the Hellcat Pro. As is typical on the channel here, what we're gonna do is first we're gonna shoot a mag through one, a mag through the other. After each one of those, we're gonna tell you the shooting profile of the gun. Then we're gonna swap back and forth for a full mag. A couple of shots through the Hellcat Pro, a couple of shots through the Glock 19, and give you a breakdown of what the differences between the two shooting profiles are. Last, we're going to do a time test. Now, we are at a different range today, so our time test is going to be a little bit different. I have 2 cardboards set up at 10 yards. We're going to do 5 body shots and 2 head shots, and we're going to compare those times. Now, do expect these times to be a little bit slower than our steel times that we normally do, because I'm going to have to shot call, and it's going to be just a little bit slower of a process. But the 2 times should be comparable. First up, let's go ahead and shoot the Glock 19. Going to send a full mag through it and tell you what we think. The Glock 19 is kind of what people would consider the bar for a concealed carry handgun. And in firing it, you can really find out why. The recoil is very manageable, very linear, very predictable. Return to zero is really quick, and the reliability is just awesome. Typically speaking, the 2 major issues that people talk about the most are the fact that they just don't feel great in the hand. Well, let me tell you something, feeling great in the hand makes absolutely no difference when you're actually shooting a gun. And then you've got the problem, and then you've got the trigger, which on these Gen 5 versions is significantly better. It's not a good trigger still, but it's manageable. And honestly, it's up in that bar of diminishing returns, how much you're gonna truly get out of replacing that trigger with a better trigger. Side tracking on the 19 is straight up and down. As I said, it's very predictable. You know when it's gonna come back down, you know when you can take that next shot. And per its size, the Glock 19 is actually one of the softest shooting pistols in the compact size frame. Let's go ahead and send a mag through the Hellcat Pro now. Okay, so that's one of the problems that I've noticed with the Hellcat Pro is inconsistent holdback. It just doesn't hold back very well. This is just factory ammo, 115 grain, I think, Blazer brass. So there's absolutely no reason why that shouldn't have held back. Now, shooting the Hellcat, it's a slightly snappy gun, which would be expected for the barrel length, but the grip size and the grip texture really help you tame that down, as opposed to like the standard Hellcat. This one is a much more fun gun to shoot. It's still not a gun that I would say like is a fun range gun. It's not like a 22-45 that you're gonna go to the range and like have a really good time with. But it's definitely a more fun gun to shoot than its smaller counterpart. Now, per that increased recoil, the drop back on target, pretty quick, pretty manageable. And the trigger on the Hellcat is significantly better than the Glock trigger. And I don't just mean in the trigger pull profile. The shape of the trigger itself lends to a more comfortable shooting experience. Now, that's not to say that it shoots more comfortably than a Glock 19, but the trigger itself, the shape of the trigger is a more comfortable shape. Let's go ahead and swap over. Now we're gonna load a couple of more mags up, and we're gonna be shooting a couple shots through one and a couple shots through the other one to get the differences between the two shooting profiles. Here we've got the Glock 19 and the Hellcat Pro. Okay, we did have a lock open that time. Okay, so the shooting profile of the two guns. The Glock 19 definitely shoots a little bit softer, but it's not as much softer as I thought that it was going to be. And I think a part of that is the design of the frame itself. The Hellcat lets you get a very high grip. The Glock, because it doesn't have a pronounced undercut back here in the back, is really easy for me to get slide bite on. You can actually see where the slide has been rubbing. The Hellcat doesn't do that, so I'm able to grip higher and harder on the Hellcat versus the 19. Now, as far as back on target goes, I do feel like the 19 is a little bit quicker. We'll test that here in just a second. I will say that I feel like I can grip the Hellcat a little bit harder because it's a smaller grip and I have medium-sized hands, so that lets me get my fingers around it a little bit more, but I don't think that's actually changed the way that it's shot at all. It just changed my perception of how hard I can grip it, which doesn't seem to have changed much, a whole lot. So now let's go ahead and load up and we'll do the comparison to see if any of what I just pointed out really has an effect on the final result of shooting the gun. Okay, so before we get started with this, I want to make sure that I note this because I'm not 100% sure if I'll get to it in the studio review, how much the Hellcat mags suck to load. They're horrible. The last 2 to 3 rounds, you need a Maglula loader to be able to load these things. My thumbs are killing me. They're all like goldy black. The Glock mags, obviously significantly easier. Anyway, let's get to the comparison. So first up, we're going to be taking our target on the right with the Hellcat Pro, then we're going to be taking the target on the left with the Glock 19. Both of them are about 10 yards. Versus the Hellcat Pro. Okay, so the headshots did not connect with the head. I have a feeling that we'll check the aim here in a little bit. I actually haven't done much accuracy stuff with the Hellcat Pro. They're both low left, so there's that. The cool part about doing this off steel is we can actually see where the hits are with these two, in addition to getting our time. The time on that was 3.75 seconds, and we had 7 shots total. Let's go ahead and move to the Glock 19. Okay, so I had an extra shot with the 19. We're at a 390. I did miss with one of my headshots, and every single one of those shots was bad. I will tell you, the 2 headshots with the 19 were headshots. The body shots were all lower left A zone. With the Hellcat Pro, 3 of the body shots were center A zone, 1 was lower A zone, and 1 of them was lower left C zone. And then the 2 headshots, for some reason, connected like right up here. So really quick, out of curiosity, I want to see what my comfortable split times are with each one of these guns. So I'm just gonna be going body shots. I'm just gonna be doing 2 shots because I'm just curious what the split time is to be able to pull it back down. Okay, so that was a .25 split. That was the Glock 19. Let's go ahead and do the Hellcat Pro now. Okay, those both connected, but the second shot was not. That was the 2.5 split. Let's go ahead and do the Glock 19 again. Make sure I've got ammo. I do. Okay, both those connected, and we got a 2.3 split. Back to the Hellcat Pro. We can do this 2 more times. Okay, both those connected, and that was a 2.7 split. Back to the 19. Dang it. Apparently that extra shot I took with the 19 screwed us. Well, let's go ahead and go back to the Hellcat Pro. So the Glock 19's got a 2.3 split so far. Okay, those both connected, and those were a little bit quicker at a 2.3 split. So I'm a little bit surprised. I expected the Glock 19 to be a measurable amount better as far as all this went, but I really think that the Hellcat Pro's grip texturing, the size of the grip, I may be eating my words as far as that comfort in the hand goes for shootability, because I really do think that the size especially and the shape of the Hellcat Pro, and then that significantly better grip texturing really helps you grip this gun just a little bit better, which seems to make up a little bit for its increased recoil. So let's go ahead and head back to the studio now. Let's round everything out. Okay, so I've had a lot of preconceived notions about guns. It's just something that you do when you do this for a while. I've covered this before. And I tell you, a lot of the time when you go out, those notions are kind of smashed to crap, just in this case. I have shot the 19 a lot. I really enjoy shooting the Glock 19. I think it's one of the most predictable recoil systems that you can get in a gun its size. Yes, there are better shooting guns. There are very few better shooting guns in this size segment, and that includes the Hellcat Pro. Even after shooting it, I still don't think that it recoils as well. However, obviously the numbers don't lie. Despite this feeling like it recoils more harshly, it seems to return to zero just as fast, and I'll tell you, the sights do tend to lend themselves to a quicker acquisition. I wouldn't call the grip shape on either one of these guns overly ergonomic. They're both kind of boxy, but I will say that the reduced length between the Hellcat Pro's front and back helps my little child hands get a pretty good grip on there, while the Glock, being its typical big blocky Glock, tends to not fit quite as well. For grip texturing, I'm really not favoring one or the other. The Hellcat Pro feels a little bit better in the hand, but the Glock seems to be just as grippy, it's just not as cool. So now that we've covered all of that, what do I think about these two guns? For carry, I've carried both guns quite considerably now, and I carried the Hellcat both with a light and without a light, and I carried the 19 both with a light and without a light. And I will say that, and this pains me to say, the Hellcat Pro with the TLR7 Sub actually carries almost, not quite as nicely, but almost as nicely as the Glock 19 without a light. Now I do carry appendix, so, you know, there's legs and stuff down there to get in the way, but I wasn't expecting that, but I was hoping for it. With the Hellcat Pro being able to carry a light as comfortably, almost as comfortably, as a bigger gun, lends itself a lot of credit, would pull more people that direction, especially now that we've got the 15 rounds in both of those guns. And if you go back to our time trials, they actually shot really similarly, and that's with no light. You add a light on the Hellcat Pro, and I would actually say it's probably going to eke out the 19 just a little bit. And that hurts me to say because I'm a compact gun guy. Like, even with both of these, my EDC is still a P10C. I just like that form factor. It gives me confidence. But now that I've shot the Hellcat Pro right next to the 19th, is that confidence merited? Or is it all in my head? And this is really just as good. So to sum it up, I don't know. I know that's not the answer that you're looking for, and I apologize for that. But I don't know. If you are looking at a compact gun and you're bouncing between the two, because let's admit it, the Hellcat Pro is not a subcompact gun, it's not a micro gun anymore like the Hellcat, it is a compact gun. The grip lengths are close enough that it's compact size. I mean, we're looking at a 1/4 inch difference in length between the two. But with how close they are, and the Hellcat Pro actually carrying a little bit better, maybe it is worth it just to get a Hellcat Pro. And if you say that you're gonna go with a Hellcat Pro over the 19, I don't really have any ammo to argue with you about. I just don't. Obviously, the 19 is going to have more accessories than the Hellcat Pro. And I will say that finding a holster for the Hellcat Pro was more difficult than finding a holster for the 19. For the 19, you can simply go to harrysholsters.com, use the coupon code WORKTHETRIGGER for 10% off, and grab a singleton for the Glock 19. The Hellcat Pro, however, they screwed the pooch a little bit. They modified the sizes of it, so the Hellcat Pro doesn't fit in your standard Hellcat holsters, which means the singletons that Harry has for the Hellcat won't fit the Hellcat Pro, which is a little bit of a bummer. So you do have to find specific holsters for the Hellcat Pro. So you are going to have to work a little bit harder to find the holsters for the Hellcat Pro. I will post links to both of those down in the description, as long as YouTube lets me, as well as the singleton for the Glock 19 down there. But that being said, if you're willing to deal with all that crap, I can't argue if you go with the Hellcat. So that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you like this video, hit that like button down below. If you like it and you want to see more, you can hit that subscribe button. There are a few ways that you can support us here on the channel. Way number one is over on patreon.com. You'll find a link in the description down below for that. Number two is right here on YouTube. You can become a channel member. Number three is by heading over to WTT3D.com. Over there, you're going to find our 3D printed gun accessories, like the Knoll mag adapter. And four is WorkTheTrigger.com. Over there, you can find coupon codes, affiliate codes, and links to our merch. Remember, guys, I appreciate every one of you. And until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.